Right, welcome and many thanks for staying with us right here on Morning at NTV. We'd like to get into another pertinent conversation, largely focusing on the plight of children with special needs right here on Morning at NTV. In my midst is Sarah Bugosi-Chiboli, the Commissioner of Special Needs and Inclusive Education. She's joining us right now. We also do have Maureen Kechirunga, Regional Inclusive Education Advisor at the Norwegian Association of the Disabled. We do have our first ever National Symposium for Inclusive Education that is going to be taking center stage on the 16th tomorrow at Silver Springs Hotel Bugolobi, and the 17th of the same week, that is on Friday, we shall still be at that hotel, Silver Springs Hotel Bugolobi, talking about the plight of children with special needs, what needs to be done to actually improve their welfare during this COVID-19 pandemic. We do know in primary we do have some 7,800 plus children with special needs who are actually clamoring for special needs inclusive education. In around secondary we have 115, but the numbers in tertiary and university institutions, we do not know the number, and also pre-primary. But I do have the Commissioner and Kechirunga who are going to be enticing us with all these details pertaining to children with special needs. How best can we expedite an atmosphere that will actually make it possible for these young children to actually access education in an inclusive manner? We shall be actually responding to SDG 4 that allows for an inclusive and equitable access to education in that regard. A very good morning, Ms. Chiboli and also Kechirunga.
Good morning.
Indeed. Tomorrow we are at Silver Springs Hotel Bugolobi for our first ever National Inclusive Education Symposium. But then what prompted this move to actually expedite this symposium? Let's take us back to the COVID-19 pandemic and how it has affected children with special needs.
Okay, thank you so much, moderator. My name is Sarah Bugosi-Chiboli. I work with the Ministry of Education and Sports as the Commissioner for Special Needs and Inclusive Education. Like you have said, tomorrow and Friday, we are going to have the first ever National Symposium organized by Ministry of Education and Sports with its partners.
Indeed.
And we are focusing on inclusive education. What prompted us to have this is not only COVID-19, but there are also quite a number of legal frameworks that talk about promotion of rights and education of persons with disabilities. And this is a deliberate effort, because if we just speak without the legal frameworks, then we won't be achieving what we want to achieve.
How would the legal framework help us solve this situation?
Yes, the legal framework, because we begin with the global, the international ones, and almost all the international laws which focus on people with disabilities. The Republic of Uganda has signed, is a signatory to most of those legal frameworks, and if you're a signatory, then you also come to your country and then domesticate also a policy in relation to that. And even then, without them even being whether legal frameworks or not legal frameworks, people with disabilities or children with disabilities are people, first of all, they are people like all of us. We all go to school, we all do so many other things, but people with disabilities are limited in that because of the conditions that they are facing, they are limited in so many ways. And the way other people look at them is different. They tend to look at them as being very expensive, being this, and in that way we tend not to give them the right services they require. So these legal frameworks force governments and other key stakeholders to do what they are supposed to do for these people. And in relation to COVID-19, we realized, as much as like now Uganda, we have tried to do a lot, but all the same, people with disabilities or children in schools had a double jeopardy. Their problems have been much higher. That even when we made the home learning materials, learners with disabilities many of them have not accessed them up to now.
Indeed.
Reason being, some of those materials cannot be used at home. They have to be used in school, when the teachers are also there supporting them, and yet schools are closed. So this has been a very big eye-opener to us, and we're saying, I think the time is now, though it should have happened yesterday.
Indeed.
So we've started on, and we hope this symposium that we have arranged is going to speak a lot to many of the problems. And in that, we're obviously going to come out those 2 days, as we discuss, as we share in the 2 days, we are going to come out with quite a number of actionable strategies that we are going to use to take inclusive education forward.
Let's also bring in Maureen Kechirunga, the Regional Inclusive Education Advisor working for the Norwegian Association of the Disabled. Maureen Kechirunga, what are some of those challenges that have affected children with disabilities during this COVID-19 lockdown?
Thank you so much. So some of the challenges, like she said, access to home learning materials, and then also the fact that they need instructors to help them. They need teachers around them to help them. And then they do not have assistive devices. They cannot access school, neither can they access these home learning materials. Then during COVID-19, many people were, it was a mess. No one was prepared. So children with disabilities were left out. Families with disabilities were left out. Even when there was help given to families of vulnerable people, persons with disabilities were left out. So these are things that left them behind, that cause us to come out and want to speak about the response towards persons with disabilities and especially children with disabilities. Now that we are going to open schools, we want to say that we should not keep quiet. We need to speak about inclusive education. Learners with disabilities need to be brought out of the communities and brought to school. And we cannot do this alone. So at the symposium, we want to be hearing from others. COVID-19 is not something everyone prepared for. How did they respond with the people that they support? So we share experience, we gather information, and then people out there can pick up these lessons learned and apply them when schools open. Indeed.
We've also gotten to learn that many of these children with special needs have been violated during this COVID-19 lockdown. Sexual abuse has been meted out on many of them. Many have gotten also pregnant, and we envisage a situation whereby we reopen schools and many of whom cannot join back into the school system because they're already pregnant. Others have been married off early. What do you make of this?
This is an unfortunate situation, but we hope that through media and through, because we wouldn't have known this if the media had not reported on some of these stories. So we believe that if we have partnership with everyone, all stakeholders, even including the parents, because we do not want parents to abandon children to whoever is out there. We need to put hands together and make sure that we address some of these challenges. And then I'm glad that even those who became pregnant will still be able to go to school. So let's not say they are done with. They are not done with. They can still achieve education.
Ms. Shibola.
I would want to add something on what Maureen has said.
Go ahead.
As Minister of Education and Sports, and even the entire Uganda, we are aware of the very many challenges children have gone through, and especially children with disabilities. And so far, at Ministry of Education and Sports, there have been quite a number of responses that have been worked on to ensure that to come January as we open schools, many of these should, we should now implement what we have already planned. As of now, trainings are going on all over the country. That is in terms of preparing teachers in psychosocial skills, because also teachers have also been gravely affected. So there is a lot of training going on. District education officers, district inspector of schools, head teachers, teachers, and all these are being done in preparation for reopening. And a lot of emphasis is being placed on learners with special needs. When the teachers come in, how are we going to manage these learners with special needs? Then also at the Department of Special Needs, we have given out quite a number of assistive devices which we are going to use at the reopening of schools and also training of teachers.
Of course, that's when you anticipate that these learners are going to come back into the school
Exactly.
system. But what we are seeing on the ground is that many of these young people might not return to the school system because of so many problems,
Exactly.
poverty here and there. And there's also the issue of planning. We are planning for a number of PWDs, or children with special needs, whom we do not know. We only do know that 7,800 are in primary. We only do know that secondary has only 115. But what about tertiary? What about universities? What about pre-primary? Aren't we planning for a group whose number we don't really know? Without data, you can't really plan.
Yes, I want to agree on you. I want to agree with you partially, but I would also want to say that the numbers that we have placed here, the 7,600 and is it 82?
82.
Yeah, these are the children that we are giving subvention grant.
All right.
But we are aware that the number is more than that. These are the ones who are benefiting in terms of subvention grant, and then the 115 are also under secondary are the ones benefiting. But we have more learners in school with the special needs. It's above that.
How many do we have?
We could be having in all the institutions about 100,000 in all. But because of the minimal resources, we've not been able to reach each and every child in terms of subvention grant, but there are more than that. And when I talk about 100,000, that is right from primary, secondary, and all those other classes.
Do you have special grants set aside for this group, especially for those who might not be able to have school fees during the reopening of schools in January?
No, we do not have any special grants as Ministry of Education and Sports. But what I'm also aware of is under Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development. There are grants that are provided to parents of children with disabilities. But you know, you must get out to go and request for these grants and then be given. Then we also have grants of persons who are out of school. So there's also a provision for that. But for us in the Ministry of Education, we have the subvention grant that we give to the schools because we are looking at children in school, not children out of school. But also, we also work closely with the Ministry of Gender to ensure that those children who have dropped out of school are returned. Because, like, for instance, we have the street children and those very many others. Once Ministry of Gender mobilizes all these and gets them, then they also now access education. Like, for instance, here in Kampala, we have many street children who are accessing education. And that is where we come in as Ministry of Education to ensure that we give the education that is required.
I see. Maureen Kachirunga, talk to us about the significance of offering psychosocial support to these children with special needs. Many have gone through a lot during this COVID-19 pandemic.
Yes, you see, if you do not offer this psychosocial support, someone is likely not to, you see, we plan to make sure that someone attends school, participates and achieves at the end of the day. But how are they going to participate and achieve if they are stressed, if they are thinking about all the things that they have gone through? So it is key that they receive this counseling, they receive this attention, they talk about these things so that they are able to manage this situation that they went through and be able to concentrate on education and achieve at the end of the day, just like other learners that have not gone through some of these things. So it's very important for this counseling to take place. It's very important that also the teachers go through this kind of support as well, because they also have gone through issues during the lockdown.
During this COVID-19 pandemic or lockdown, what kind of help have you been advancing to these children with special needs? Besides this symposium you're talking about tomorrow, what have you been doing before as the Norwegian Association of the Disabled?
So as actually we work under a consortium. We have Save the Children, we have the Norwegian Association of Disabled, Stromi Foundation, the National Union of Disabled People's Organization in Uganda, and then we also have the Spina Bifida and Hydrocephalus Association of Uganda. So we have been working together. One is that we have been working with the schools to make them accessible. So while children were home, we try to make sure that the structures are changed to make them accessible. We provided home learning materials for learners with disabilities and learners with special needs. We found them in their homes and try to give just simple things that can be used at home. And then we also have we've been assessing learners with disabilities. We plan to provide assistive devices, wheelchairs, hearing aids, so that that barrier is removed, the barrier of lack of assistive devices. So we've been doing assessment, and this is what we're going to start with in January. Otherwise, during the lockdown, home learning materials, and then trying to change structures, and then we've been also training teachers in inclusive education so that they keep busy learning about inclusive education. By the time these learners come to school, they'll be knowing what to do. Yeah.
What about those ones who did not receive those learning materials? It means they won't be knowing what to do when they enter the school system because they did not receive the home learning materials during the lockdown. Don't you think this is going to increase the educational or knowledge gap between those who are disabled and those who are well-bodied?
It's going to increase, but like I said earlier on, that Ministry of Education and Sports has made and is still making arrangements to ensure that as schools reopen, all learners must be brought on the same page.
How? That is the
because
question.
one, these other classes, except the candidate classes that sat, these other classes, no child has been promoted. And the plan of the Ministry of Education has a plan of how to get all learners on the same page so that when it comes to promotion, all of them are going to be promoted. And media has also been informed that the First Lady and Minister of Education and Sports, Honorable Kataha Museveni, will be on TV on 15th, which is today.
Indeed.
Yes, to now unveil the plans of Ministry of Education and Sports.
I see.
So today we are going to have all these plans mentioned, and it's from there that we are going to get started. But already many things are already happening in schools, and she's going to talk about all these things that are going on.
How many special needs schools do we have in Uganda?
As of now, we have 26, 24 special schools. These include both primary and secondary. And of these 24, 15 are government aided, and then 9 are private. I believe you're also aware that Ministry of Education and Sports stopped the partnership with private institutions in form of USE, but here we did not stop with the special schools. Reason being, these learners, the things they use are very expensive and very few parents can afford them. So if we also cut off our ties with the special schools, the private special schools, then it would be so expensive for the parents, and many of these learners would drop out. And many times, many learners enroll, but by the end of the cycle, more than 80% would have dropped out. And some of the reasons are that what they use is very expensive, the teachers have the knowledge gaps, the schools are inaccessible, the environments are not friendly, and these are many things that Ministry of Education is going to address. Then we also have inclusive education schools. These are schools where we have both normal children and then able-bodied, and then these learners with disabilities. So these go to the same classes, same environment, and same everything. And these are the kind of schools where we want to promote under the inclusive education.
How many of these schools are run by the government? 126 inclusive schools.
These are all government. The 126 are all government.
That is amazing. Maureen Kechirunga, this is amazing. We have some 126 inclusive special needs schools in this country, but we need to increase them so that we cover more special needs children. 100,000, that is a big, big number. 126 special needs schools we need to increase. And I've also heard from some experts that children with special needs learn better when they are learning with their counterparts who are non-disabled. Is this true?
Yes, that is very true, because one thing that that you get rid of is the negative attitude.
Indeed.
So when all learners come together, they are able to support each other. The teacher is able to instruct everyone at the same level, and then these learners with disabilities or learners with special needs gain confidence. They feel, oh, okay, I can do this with someone without a disability, and then they can all play and help each other, learn with each other, and then be able to achieve. And just to add on that, the consortium is supporting 56 extra schools, and those are inclusive as well, and all these are government-funded schools. So on the 126, you can add on 56
I see.
that are supported by the Norwegian Association of Disabled and the consortium members. Yeah.
That is some 182 special needs schools in this country run by government and also private players. Are we at par to actually achieve SDG Goal 4, which allows for inclusive education for our children with special needs?
Yes.
Are we making progress?
We're making progress. And in that line, as a country, we already have a draft policy, that is the National Inclusive Education Policy, which is currently at the top management of the Ministry of Education and Sports. We are calling it the National Inclusive Education Policy. And what is bringing on board is to ensure that inclusive education is achieved in this country. In this policy, we have outlined quite a number of things, because one of the most important things that was looked at was exclusion. That as learners enter school, how many are able to complete by cycle 7? And the National Inclusive Education Policy is not only looking at learners with disabilities, it's looking at all learners with special needs.
I see.
Where we have the street children, the orphans and vulnerable, all categories who are excluded.
Vulnerable children.
And before we
Destitute.
could come up with the policy, we had we had first of all to go out to find out what are those problems that are out there that are making this small number of learners complete by cycles 7. So this policy is coming up to address so many issues. Just a quick one. Our learners with cognitive problems, intellectual problems, many of them go through school, they can even spend 15 or 17 years in school, but none of them goes with a certificate home, because our certificate in Uganda is the primary living examination. But how many of these learners are able to sit P7 at the end of the day? So this policy is coming in handy to see that whoever has gone through school, what form of certificate or what form of paper can they get at the end of the day to show that they also attended. So it's coming up to really help in the education sector to ensure that all learners who would have gone through school have something to show. And then too, not every learner has to do mathematics and science, and these are part of the things we have been talking about.
And that's where I was going. The curriculum being the same for the non-disabled and the, disabled. Is it the same curriculum that
It is the same curriculum. But as much as it is the same curriculum, we should also go further to look at the abilities.
Indeed, because learners with cognitive disabilities might have strengths in one area and low, weaknesses in another area, especially when it comes to skills. They're stronger there. If you find one trait that this child with special needs has and you maximize on it, if it's numbers, they can be really good accountants. But if you take them to sciences, biology, that's where you're going to be having a problem there. So what is being done to tweak, a curriculum that is only streamlined for the PWDs and another for the non-disabled? No,
we are not going to streamline a specific curriculum for the disabled and then a specific one. We shall still use the same curriculum, but when we are doing the instruction, we should look at a person's ability and then support that person to take that direction. And even as we talk now, we are talking about the Vision 2030, 2040 of where we want to see our country reach the middle income economy. For us to reach that middle income economy, it means everybody in Uganda must have the right skills and do the right jobs and the right activities. So in this one, even learners with disabilities can also do a lot to promote that reaching the middle income economy. Because if this learner with disability, especially the learners with cognitive problems, if their major interest is agriculture, then why don't you take them in agriculture, and not agriculture of using machines, mechanized agriculture, but agriculture maybe like horticulture, planting vegetables. One, if this person plants the vegetables, takes care of them, is able to, first of all, feed well, sell them, tangible skills. So this is what we shall be looking at, and our curriculum has all this.
Indeed.
We have the lower secondary curriculum. It has a lot of agriculture, so many things.
All right.
It's only that we have not maybe implemented it so widely, but this is where we are going.
Indeed, that is amazing. Maureen Kechirunga, are we at par to actually achieve SDG 4, that is SDG 4, where you do have the same curriculum for special needs and those who are non-disabled? Will that take us to achieve this SDG 4?
Yes, it will. Like she said, the curriculum is the same, yes, but it has a range of skill building lessons.
But you don't think we
there.
need a specific one for the PWDs?
We don't need a specific one. We already have the technical colleges, yeah, the tertiary institutions where they learn different skills.
I see.
Yeah, like for example, we have a disabled child who is now making very good baskets, and she'll be there at the symposium. And she's in school, yes, but she's making these baskets and earning a living.
The reason why I'm saying we need to tweak the curriculum is because this curriculum is focusing on examinations. They go cram notes and then they come and they write exams. This curriculum or model shouldn't be the same for the special needs children. If she's going to be focusing on her baskets, we need to find another model to assess her good work. Go ahead, Maureen.
Okay, but so those are just maybe,
Yes.
I'll talk about them as...
I'm sure this is what you're going to be talking about tomorrow during the symposium.
Yeah, there
sharing
are
ideas.
so many abstracts,
Yes.
so many papers that are going to be presented,
Yes.
and those are part of the things that we're going to talk about.
All right.
Now, I want to still say that we shall still use the same curriculum.
Indeed.
But for learners with special needs, where do we start from? And that will be, I think, our first paper. We
Yes.
start with assessment.
All right.
We need to assess these learners, find out what they are able to do and what they cannot do.
Competence-based learning.
Exactly.
Yes.
And that is now when we come in with the different interventions. And all these interventions have been written down. They are there. It's
right.
only that maybe how do we do them?
Indeed. Ms. Chiboli, I'm afraid we've run out of time,
the
but
other
where
one.
are we going to be tomorrow?
Tomorrow we're going to be at Silver Springs, Bugolobi.
Time?
Time we start from 8:30 to 5. The symposium is going to run for 2 days. That is 16th
Tomorrow, 16th and 17th
and
Friday.
17th
Yes.
for the 2 days. And among the activities that we have is we have learners with disabilities who are also going to be part, and they'll also be having a number of activities. We have people who are going to scholars who are going to present papers. We have, then before I get off, I want to extend our gratitude to the very many partners that have supported us.
Yes.
We have NAD that has led them. We have Nadipu, I don't know whether I should mention all of them here. Kindly
Indeed, we've run out of time. We have the Strong Foundation and so forth. Thank you very much, Ms. Chiboli, and also Maureen Kechirunga, who will be there at the Silver Springs Hotel tomorrow for the first ever National Inclusive Education Symposium. Please, thank you very much for coming through.
Thank you for having
Thank you
us.
so much for having us.
Indeed. And of course, the Managing Director for Centenary Bank, Fabian Kasi, is already here, and we're going to be having a major conversation on microfinance. We'll be right back.